Hey everybody, welcome back to Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner from Calvary Chapel in Trussville, Alabama, here on BGTV Studios. We're very glad to have you with us today, motivating and inspiring you to live the life that God has called you to live. Today we're going to be talking about a very important part of the process, which is celebrating your wins. Not passing them over too quickly, but taking the time to celebrate and mark the occasion when that happens. Before we get into that, I want to remind you about ironworks.media. We at Calvary Chapel Trussville are building the premier online resource network for the Christian church, especially for Calvary Chapel, and Difference Makers in BGTV is a big part of that. You can go to ironworks.media to find books. We got some books for sale, and we got a couple new ones coming out this year, and they're very, very close. In fact, by the time you see this, they may be out already, so you can go check those out there. We've also got plenty of videos, podcasts, Bible studies, all there for you. We're going to be adding some new contributors here pretty soon, so you can keep that in your prayers. If you sign up for the mailing list today, you can not only find out about all the things that are coming up in the future, but you can download 2 free ebooks right away as our gift to you. You also can find out more about the church at calvarychapeltrussville.com. All right, so we are talking always here about you living the life God has called you to live. You've got works prepared beforehand for you to walk in, and God has a calling and an assignment for you to accomplish in your life. And maybe if you're like me, you get excited about what God's called you to do. You set some targets, you set some goals, you work hard, you grind, you struggle, you go through the ups and the downs, you get through that messy middle that maybe we'll talk about someday where it feels like you're just getting nowhere. And finally, you accomplish that goal, that target that you set, that thing you put on the wall, that the picture you stuck in the mirror of your bathroom to be looking forward to. You accomplished it. But have you ever done that, and that moment just feels totally hollow, where it feels like I finally accomplished what I wanted, and it doesn't feel like Rocky? I felt like I was grinding with Rocky. I felt like I was working hard and putting the time in and doing everything I was supposed to. But now that I accomplished it, I won the fight, I won the battle, I got what I wanted, and I did what I set out to do. And then it just feels like a normal Tuesday. It feels like there's no joy there. There's no ticker tape parade that happens. You don't feel a great sense of satisfaction in your soul. You don't feel like the Lord is smiling down on you. It just feels like, I said, Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the case may be. And that's not a great feeling to have. And if you've ever experienced that, you probably know what comes after that. Charles Spurgeon himself said that the devil's attacks tend to come after our greatest failures, but also right after our greatest successes. And I can tell you from personal experience that there can be an emptiness that comes after that, an emptiness that comes into your life after you accomplish a goal and maybe you just don't know what to do next. You feel that you're listless. There's that ennui is the word, that biblical word acedia, the boredom that comes into your life. Like, all right, what do I do now? And it's not that you don't have anything to do with your time. You just can't feel yourself motivated to get up and do anything anymore. For my part, when we bought our new house, that was a years-long grind for us, making sure that we had saved enough, making sure that we had prepared financially for that. We were looking forward to what it was going to be, and then it all came true just the way we wanted, and yet I would find myself just lounging around in the house saying, well, now what I do? And sometimes when you're in that place, this is when vices can start to come in. Maybe you used to be addicted to pornography, and now it starts to creep back in again. Or maybe you found yourself as a compulsive spender, but when you were grinding and saving for that next thing and paying off that next debt, you were in the zone. But then, now that you've paid it off, you find yourself drifting onto Amazon again. Or maybe you call up that old boyfriend or old girlfriend, or maybe you find yourself drinking more than you should, or whatever it is. And then there can be a depression that comes along with it. There's just a sadness that sinks over you. And this maybe is not clinical depression where you need to be medicated, but you just feel like, I don't see what I'm getting up out of bed for anymore. And you don't understand why, because you did what you set out to do. You can see the trophy hanging on the wall, whatever it is, and you feel depressed. You feel beaten down. This is similar in some respects, I don't want to overstep here, but to postpartum depression, when women have had their babies and now they kind of don't know what to do with themselves. Men often feel this way when they get married. They're perfectly happy with the woman they married, and yet there's a sense of, now what do I do, that comes in. Well, I want us to be able to avoid that feeling, or at least to be able to minimize it. We worked for a long time to plant the church down here in Alabama. Well, we reached a point where I could say, well, the church has been planted, What do I do next? And that's really the very answer, is figuring out what to do next. But before we get there, there's an important step. I want to talk about how we can enjoy our wins, get the most out of our successes, and have these moments that don't just feel like, well, we did it and now we're on to the next thing, but to actually have a moment where we can celebrate our successes. I want to read from Ecclesiastes chapter 9, which is one of the wisdom books of Scripture. It's one of the most neglected books of Scripture. But look at what he says in chapter 9, verses 7 through 10. Solomon says, "Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white." Of course, in that culture, having a white garment was a symbol of celebration, because everything else is going to get dusty and dirty. You don't have, fabric softener. You don't have bleach that's going to keep your garments white. You don't have a washing machine. So you kept the white garment for the happy days, because this is the clean one. So let your garments be always white. Let oil not be lacking on your head. Another mark of celebration. It was a way of beautifying yourself. And verse 9, enjoy life with the wife whom you have all the days of your vain life. Vain meaning short, meaning fleeting, meaning here today, gone tomorrow. Let all the days of your vain life and all that God has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. That's what you're working for. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, the grave to which you are going. The book of Ecclesiastes, if you know, is Solomon's way of running through all the parts of life and saying, that's not what life's all about. That didn't satisfy me. That didn't last very long. There wasn't anything to that. But you get these moments in the book where he says, here's what is important. And it's all these aspects of everyday life. He says, don't make yourself so miserable chasing money or chasing success or chasing knowledge. He says, take the time to eat your bread, drink your wine, have a celebration once in a while, put oil on your head, enjoy life with your wife. Because he says, all that grinding, that's what it's for, is to enjoy this everyday life. He said, do everything you can with all your heart, and yet take the time to enjoy it and celebrate. There's so many things we can draw out of that, but today, all I want to focus on is celebrating our wins, enjoying every day, and working hard to get to the next one. This allows all these things to be in their proper place, perfectly balanced as God intended them to be. So there's 4 steps we want to run through here about avoiding that feeling I was talking about at the beginning. And the first of which is you need to have a worthy goal. You need to have something, like Solomon said, that you can toil at under the sun, to do it with all your might. Think about this in your life. Do you have something that you do with all your might? Is there anything that you give everything to? And if you don't, you need to ask yourself, why not? Drifting along through life is no good. Some people feel like, well, that's freedom, being able just to sit on the beach, sip a drink, hang out and look at the beautiful girls on the beach, and now this is living. But it's really not. You can only do that for so long. Maybe you're like me. When I go on vacation, I enjoy my vacation, but if I hit around day 5 or 6, I'm ready to get back home and go to work. Now, I'm lucky and blessed in the fact that I am working at something that I'm very happy to do. And we've talked about that, very recently. You got to change the game sometimes and get to that place. But the point is, too much relaxation doesn't feel any good. If you have a Saturday and you play a lot of video games, that might be nice once, but you do it again for another day, and your body's going to start to rebel against you and say, all right, let's get up and go outside. Let's go do something. It's actually slavery, not freedom, just to be drifting through life. So you need goals. You need targets. You need something to aim for and shoot for. And goals can be chosen for you. When you're a kid, your parents choose your goals for you. You have baseball practice tonight. You have football practice tomorrow. No, you can't quit. Yes, you have to go. Prom shows up. All right, that's going to be happening your junior and senior year. So you got to get ready for that. You've got college coming up next. You've got graduation. You've got to get your first job. So life will give you those goals, and so will your work if you let it. But that's not always the most motivating thing. We've talked about this many times. You've got to decide in accordance with the will of God, listening to what God has called you to do, to make a decision about what you're going to do, where you're going to put all your attention, and pursue it with all your heart. You can choose what you want to do with your life. And once you've done that, I just mentioned that I like coming home from vacation and getting back to work. That's because when you have made a decision and set a good goal for yourself and picked a worthy target according to the will of God, then when you get to it, you can go at it hammer and tongs, man. You can just throw everything you've got at it, come home exhausted from it, and yet have a smile on your face. You come home from a job that you hate and you're exhausted, that's no fun. But if you come home just as exhausted or even more so from something that you have chosen, a goal you have set for yourself, that just feels wonderful. That's the best feeling in the whole world right there. You have drive that God has given you. You have fire in your heart. You have passion and zeal and dreams and ideas. And you have strength in your body, strength in your mind, strength in your soul to develop and use in the pursuit of those things. If you're going to say, well, I'm not going to do any of that, I'm just going to do whatever I want, you really can't do whatever you want. And life is going to steer you in the wrong direction. So the first way to avoid that bad feeling is you got to have something that you are working towards. Pick yourself a worthy goal. Now, as Solomon says, though, our second thing here, if you do that for too long, if you do too much work and you never take a break and you never rest, then you are going to burn yourself out. Burnout is not my favorite phrase, I'll just tell you right now, because way too many people use it when the going gets tough. You know, things are finally getting serious and they say, well, I'm just burned out. You know, it's like load management in the NBA. It's like, friend, you're playing basketball for a living. You know, get up there. Don't you want to get up and play basketball? People do this for fun every day. In any case, you can do this. There is a legitimate place for it. Where if you're just working, you're never seeing the fruits of your labor. You're never taking a break. You're never getting a chance to enjoy what you have. The classic example being a guy who makes a lot of money and buys a boat, and yet because he's working so hard, he never has time to actually get out on the lake with that boat. You know, the Bible teaches us that we are supposed to rest. We are supposed to, in the midst of our toil, as we just read, and our grind, we have to take time to rest. Now, sometimes you feel like, you know, Martin Sheen at the beginning of Apocalypse Now, where it's like, every time I sit here getting weaker, Charlie's out there getting stronger, and the other guys are getting ahead. No, that's not true. If you work out every single day, twice a day, and never take an off day, you're going to injure yourself. And not only that, but your effective exercise is not going to do as much for you. You need to sleep. You need to take rest days. You need to do cardio. You need to take the time to rest your joints and eat a little bit, right? You have to do that. And it's the same thing with life. The Lord, first of all, gave us the day-night cycle. God intends us to sleep. It's part of what God has given to us. The Psalms say that the Lord gives sleep to his beloved. It's a blessing. And the older you get, the more you know it's a blessing. It's amazing when you kind of make that switch, right? When you're a kid, you just want to stay up all the time. But then you hit a point where you're like, I think I'd rather go back to bed. It's a funny change that happens. But more than that, the Lord also gave us the Sabbath example, that at 1 day out of 7, you need to take a break. You need to just be at home and do nothing. Jesus said that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It's not a burden, it's a blessing. God is teaching us that you are supposed to rest. And even under the new covenant, where we are not bound by the terms of the law, the example of the law is still very important for us. Do you ever take a break? I'll tell you, I'm terrible about this. I will have a weekend like everybody else, but I'll spend my weekends working on the same things I was working on at home, or I go on trips, or I travel, or whatever it is, and I find myself being very, very tired, which I shouldn't be. If you never take the time to enjoy what you have, you will never be happy even when you achieve the goal. So I mentioned our house that we bought the other day. Buying the house is great, but if I'm never in the house, if I'm never taking the time to make it great and get the right furnishings and mow the lawn and do all the things to make it wonderful, then it's just going to be the place where you sleep, and it might as well have been the other place. So you've got to enjoy what you have. If you get married to a beautiful woman, but you're never around each other, then what's the point of that? It's just going to become a grind and a burden to you. Your children for the same way. This means you've got to have other things that you spend your time on that are not work. You need to have hobbies in your life. You need to have leisure time. You need to go out and go to dinner with your bride every once in a while. You need to go out and have fun with the boys. You need to watch the game every once in a while. You need to sit down and just read a book that isn't prepping you for the next step. It's just there to give you a chance to click your brain off and rest for a little bit. You need to be refreshed, and you need to find the right balance. Some of us are tempted to do way too much leisure, and we watch way too much football, and we spend way too much time in front of the TV, or we just spend all of our time golfing or fishing instead of spending time in the endeavors that God has given us to do. But you do need to be refreshed, and you do need to take the time to enjoy the process, because if you're just enjoying the victory, you're not going to actually enjoy it all that much, because you'll be exhausted by the time you get there. So, number 1, pick a worthy goal, and number 2, rest along the way. And number 3, which is our main emphasis today, you've got to celebrate your wins. You've got to celebrate your wins and your successes. When you accomplish a goal, the best way you can avoid that listless, depressed, sad feeling that comes over you, you've got to take time to mark the moment. You've got to have a moment of celebration where you mark, we have done this, it's been accomplished, and now we can go forward. You see this in the Bible as well. God gave the children of Israel feasts every year. They had 7 feasts they were supposed to observe. They had the year of Jubilee every 7 years, and then, every 49 years. They would have the big 50th day, a year off that they would all take. The Sabbath years would culminate, and then a big celebration. You need to have those things. When there's an event in the Bible where God does something amazing, they establish a celebration for it. So you likewise need to take the time to acknowledge when you have had a victory, you've had a win, and say, we're going to do this because we succeeded. Acknowledge your victory, even to yourself. Like, you need to mark it for yourself, and even if it is just taking time and catching your breath and smiling and getting up and going for a coffee, or I'll take a picture. Whenever I finish a manuscript of one of my books, before the editing process begins, I'll take a picture of myself. And usually it's like 2 in the morning, I'm grinding to finish, right? And I'm a little groggy, and you can tell, but that picture marks for me that it's done. I finished the thing that I was working on. That's a small way of doing it. But maybe you should do something else, like tell somebody. Hopefully you've got people around you that are celebrating what you're doing anyway, but say, hey, I said I was going to lose 10 pounds, and I lost my 10th pound today. Tell people. Go around and say, hey, I said I was going to read 50 books this year, and I just finished reading 50 books. And then let them know. Say, hey, we finally got enough money to bring on a new employee at this business that I started. That's amazing. Congratulations. We just bought our own space. In the ministry, it can be, hey, we just finished teaching through the Bible all the way for the first time. You've got to tell somebody, because other people are better at celebrating your successes than you are. If you've got a good friend, he's probably going to say, bro, what are we doing tonight? We did something great. What are we going to do today to celebrate that? Or your wife will do that for you. She'll make you a cake, or she'll say, let's go out to dinner, or just tell the neighbors. I found that I don't always like telling everybody about what I've done, but if I let my wife know, she'll make sure everybody else knows. She'll make sure everybody knows what I've done and what I've accomplished, and I bless her for that very much. Have a party. And this can range from get everybody over and just have a party of saying, hey, I did this thing, and today we're just going to get together, and this is the reason why. Or just go out to dinner, and if they say, hey, are you celebrating anything special today? Say, yes, we did. I finally finished recording my album for the first time. They say, well, congratulations, and maybe they'll bring a little cupcake or something and mark the occasion. You got to do that. You've got to take the time to have a moment. Churches can do this really well, where you move into a new building and now you're having a dedication ceremony. Or maybe you get a new pastor and so there's a special service. Or baptisms are an excellent way to mark the occasion of not just having a success, but marking the success. I would advise you all to pick a reward at the same time that you pick a goal. If you have a target that you want to accomplish, tell yourself also, not just I want to do this, but what am I going to get when I succeed? So if I finish writing that book, if I finish planting that church, if I finish starting that business, what am I going to get when I do that? And you should do that proportionate to what you're going to achieve. If you say, this is a small thing, I want to get out of bed at 6 o'clock every night this week. If you do that, what's your prize? Now, here's your thing. Don't make your prize undercut what you just did. If you say, I can get up 6 days a week at 6 a.m., then I can sleep in as late as I want the next day. Well, that's going to kind of undercut the process you're trying to build. But maybe you say, if I can get up at 6 a.m. 7 days in a row, then this day I get to go out and I get a nice breakfast. I get to go out. In my case, that would just be Waffle House or something, because I'm a simple man, I guess. But say, I'm going to go out for breakfast and get something real nice on this day, because it kind of is tied to what you're doing, and it also celebrates what you've done. If you say, I'm going to lose 25 pounds and I'm going to go out, I'm going to go buy myself a new suit. I'm going to go get fitted for one and get a nice one, or whatever it may be. Take the time to give yourself a reward and put it down the line as well. So maybe you got a big target, right? Like, we're going to launch a new business and make $1 million. That's a great goal. But if you wait for that, it's going to be a long time before you get a chance to reward yourself. So how about when we get all the administrative aspects lined up and we start the business day one, we have the first celebration. When we make our first $1,000, we have a celebration. When we make our first $100,000, when I hire my first employee, we get our first high-profile client, when we get our first advertisement that we see in the wild, whatever it might be. You need to celebrate these things. If you're doing something creative, you say, all right, when I finish writing the lyrics for this song, I'll get this. If I finish writing the melody and all the musical parts, then that. When I record the first mix, then we'll celebrate. And when we get the master done, we'll celebrate. When we launch it online, you see, all of a sudden, you're not just celebrating at the end, you're celebrating along the way. And that makes you enjoy the process too. It's not just rest, but it's celebration along the way. Because as Solomon said, your life is short and it's going to be over quick. And you might only go through this process once. If you're going to only earn the things that you do, well, don't make the target so high that you you never get a chance to enjoy it, because then it's just going to be misery followed by one day of happiness and then back to the misery. But if you realize that every so often I get a prize for myself, I get to celebrate every win, then you get excited to get into the next process. And in fact, I might say even somebody who works harder and goes faster than you still might pass them up because they're going to be so miserable in their grind that someday, but you're like, I'm enjoying it right now. Someday we're going to get there, but I'm enjoying every step of this process along the way. So we pick ourselves a worthy goal, we rest as we go, and we celebrate our wins. There's a fourth step to avoiding that listlessness that comes, because you can come home from the party and you're sweeping up all the confetti and then it can start to hit you like, well, now what? Well, it's quite simple. You start over again and you pick another goal. I would say the next step after the celebration is to pick another goal to chase. Along the same lines, if you say, I want to lose 25 pounds, and now you're at a healthy weight, you say, okay, next I'm going to go through an 8-week muscle building program. I'm picking that today. Like at the celebration, set the next one. If you're like me and you like to hang things on the wall of what we're going to do, if you take one down, don't leave it down, write a new one and put it right up in its place. You might think this will feel like you're never moving forward, but the opposite of that will be true, because you're going to be constantly progressing towards something bigger and better. So you've got to pick the next goal to chase. This keeps you from languishing in where you are. It keeps you excited. My assistant will tell you, Zach will tell you, that if I do not have a big target as a church to shoot for, I get bored, I get silly around the office, I don't really know what to do with myself, so we got to pick another one, and we'll have these meetings, and that's always the best part. And I would say you start thinking about it along the way. You say, once this is done, then I'm going to move on to the next one. You know, maybe after I finish going through that weight loss program and finished exercising, then I'm going to pick, a race to win. I'm going to do a triathlon, or I'm going to do a 5K, or whatever it might be. Or once I finish writing this book, I know what the next one is going to be. Don't let yourself think about it, though. Just as soon as you finish the first one, put that target on the wall. As soon as we make $1 million, then what's the next goal? Then we're going to open up to another location maybe, or we're going to make 2 million, whatever it might be. You got to pick another goal to go after. What this does, as I've been saying, is it allows you to fall in love with the process, that you love the everyday of your life, not just someday. Like someday I'll be happy. You say, no, I'm happy now. And even if I chase this goal and I achieve it, a lot of that listlessness comes from not having anything to go after, that you feel fulfilled. You can sense yourself approaching something, and then as soon as that's gone, you don't have anything left. So pick the next one right away. There's certain goals that you're going to leave behind forever. It's going to be, I finally climbed my way out of debt. Forget it. I'm never going back into that again. So pick yourself another finance-related goal. Or if, as I said, if it's fitness-related, or if it's creative, or if it's in your business, in your ministry. We say, all right, we want to build our church up to where we can have, 2 services at our church. That's great. Well, what do you do when you get that? Maybe you think the next thing we want to do is get our own building. Well, that's awesome. Once you get in there, what are you going to do? You think, all right, well, the next thing we want to do is focus on our outreaches and plant other churches around town. That's awesome. You just keep the process going, because that's how God created you. Work is not a result of the fall. Work predated the fall. The misery of work is what came afterwards, when the thorns and the thistles came out of the ground. But the Lord always intended you to be picking a target and shooting for it. I would say even in the kingdom to come, when the new heavens and the new earth, you're still going to be picking worthy goals, pursuing them, and then picking another one. And you know that the Lord loves to celebrate what we do. So take the time to celebrate along the way. I would say too, if you picked a larger goal, pick smaller ones. And if you know what the big goal is, if the big goal is, as I said, to start your own business, or if the big goal is to sell 1,000 copies of your own music, then you know what to do along the way. You just work backwards from that goal. You mark your progress with those things. I love doing stuff like this, gamifying your life, finding ways to make a game out of it, because it's fun. This is what the apps will do. You push the button and it goes ding, and you're like, oh, cool. I had a little moment with myself accomplishing that goal. You find ways to do that for yourself in your own life. Celebrate what you've done. Then you're not going to fall down after you succeed, but you're going to be buoyed up, because you're going to get excited. Like, okay, we get to start this process over again and move on to something awesome. And if you're the one choosing your goals in accordance with the Holy Spirit, you're going to love it. So picking a worthy goal, resting along the way, celebrating your wins, picking another one. That's the cycle. God did not create us to be consumers, just sitting down and taking in what everybody else throws at you, but to be workers, to be victors, to be overcoming things. So if you do that, though, and you never acknowledge the fact that you've won, it's just going to be drudgery, because then all that's left is the work. If there's never a celebration at the end, then it's going to feel like miserable. And with no celebration, you're going to start to doubt the point of it all. But let me remind you what Solomon said here. He said, "Go eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do." Enjoy that day-to-day living. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Let yourself celebrate a little bit. Don't be so serious all the time. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. There is a purpose to your toil, and the reason for it is that life that God has given you. So take the time and enjoy it. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. Throw yourself into your life, because it's not always going to be this way. So take the time to choose something worthy, pursue it with all you've got, enjoy the process, and then celebrate it when you're done. And then you start over again. Life is worth living, the Bible says. So enjoy every day, work for those big wins, and make sure you have a little celebration when you finally get there. This has been Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler from Calvary Chapel, Trussville in Alabama, here on BGTV Studios. I'll remind you one more time at the end about ironworks.media. If you like this episode, go back and listen to the other ones. Also there you can find our other podcasts where we do some theological deep dives. We've got books on the website that are available for purchase, but if you sign up for our mailing list, which is free, you can download 2 free audiobooks right away. You can also find our other videos and all the other content that we've got there for you, building the premier resource network for Calvary Chapel, and BGTV is one of our partners in doing that. And if you want more information about the church, just go to calvarychapeltrussville.com. Celebrate your wins as you go out there and make a difference.